Jason Shaw was initially concerned when his phone rang at 1 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps something had happened to his wife Morgan, whom he had been married to for 11 years, and who had gone on a bachelorette party with her friends and was staying at a hotel, or to his parents, or to Morgan's parents. His concern turned to annoyance when he saw that it was Cliff Dunn calling. Cliff was the former deputy director of the insurance company where Jason was the executive director. They never got along. Cliff, who was about 10 years older than Jason, was a pompous jerk who harassed female employees. When the company introduced a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, Jason fired Cliff after a complaint that he had groped a summer intern. The intern withdrew her complaint, but Jason suspected that this was due to pressure from Cliff and stood by his decision. This was confirmed when Cliff sued the company for wrongful termination. Cliff was a big, ugly, fat bully, and Jason was glad to be rid of him. However, Cliff loved to drink, and over the 2 years after he was fired, he called Jason 5 times while drunk, threatening and harassing him. Morgan wanted to get a restraining order, but Jason knew the guy was all talk, and if it came to a fight, he would never lose to Cliff. Jason knew he probably shouldn't, but he answered the phone. "Dunn, what the hell do you want at this hour?" "Show, baby, how's it going?" Cliff slurred. Just as Jason suspected, he was drunk. There was another female voice in the background that he could barely make out, probably the TV. "God, Dunn, you ruined everything. Just forget about it and move on. Stalking me won't get you anywhere." "Damn it, man, I'm not stalking you. Just a friendly call. I thought you might be interested to know that I'm screwing your wife." Jason laughed. Not only did he know that his beautiful 30-year-old wife would never cheat on him, she wouldn't even look at a guy like Cliff if he wasn't such a jerk. "You're saying you slept with Morgan? You must be really drunk." "I didn't say I slept with her. I said I'm sleeping with her. Right now. As we speak. Listen." Jason heard the phone move, then a distinct female moan that sounded very much like Morgan's voice. "Hey, it's Jason. Say hi," Cliff's voice said, moving away slightly. "Well, revenge is sweet, boss," Cliff said, speaking into the phone again. "Don't worry. When I'm done in an hour, I'll pay for a taxi to your place, but I'm keeping her underwear. Maybe her top, too." As soon as Cliff hung up, Jason immediately called back. Of course, there was no answer. He called Morgan's cell phone and then sent her a text message. Nothing. Overcome with emotion, he scrolled through his contacts and called Kayla, one of the women Morgan had been seeing, whose husband, Chad, was a very good friend of his. The phone rang about 8 times before a sleepy voice answered. "Jason? What the hell?" "Kayla, where's Morgan? It's important." Kayla laughed half-heartedly. "What do you mean? Did you lose her after you picked her up?" "What do you mean dropped her off? When? Where?" "Jason, we went upstairs around 11 to go to bed," Kayla said, now sounding more alarmed and concerned. "Morgan was very drunk and flirtatious, so we called you to come pick her up and take her home. We were afraid she would do something. Oh my God." "Kayla, no one called me. Who said I got a call? She's with someone right now. The guy I fired." "Kayla?" Shelley was sober. She said she called you, but there were a lot of people there, and when she said Morgan was taken care of, I thought, she's not here. Shelley, I mean, what the hell? How do you know Morgan is with someone? Call the police." "Kayla." Jason calmed down to speak calmly. "He called me when they were together." Morgan knew I was on the phone. She acted like nothing had happened, and she was having a good time. "It can't be. I hope it's not that fat pervert who was hitting on her at the dance. She was out of it, but she would never. Oh my God, Jason, call the police. What if he drugged her?" Kayla sounded like she was crying. Jason hung up, got dressed, and got in his car to drive to Cliff's, but then realized there was no guarantee they were there. What would he do with their 4-year-old son? Wake him up and drag him across town to see his mother being raped? Instead, he poured himself a whiskey to calm down and waited downstairs, staring out the window. It was only an hour and a half, but it felt like an eternity before a car pulled up to the house. The Uber driver, an elderly Latino man, jumped out of the car and spread his arms in a defensive gesture. "Listen, sir, I didn't touch her. She was in such a state when that guy helped her into the back seat. He said, 'Take her to her husband. He'll pay you.' I asked if she was okay and if she wanted to go to the hospital, but she shook her head. Listen, I didn't look at her." Morgan was sitting in the back seat in an open white robe. In the dim light, it was clear that she was naked underneath and in terrible condition. "Listen, I need to wake my son up. Can you wait while I take her to my car? We'll go to the hospital. Can I have your contact information? The police may want to talk to you." "Yes, of course, sir," the man said, pulling out a piece of paper. "Here's my business card. Please don't worry, I won't charge you. I have a family, too." Sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for the police and the test kit was torture. Morgan was still in her open gown so they could take photos and swabs. The worst part was that there were marker pen words written on different parts of her body. Cliff was here. Morgan didn't say anything, she just cried. Little Tommy understood that his mother was upset, and he cried too. She didn't look Jason in the eye. Finally, Jason waited outside while his wife was examined by the police, doctors, and psychologists. Little Tommy calmed down and fell asleep when two uniformed police officers with grim expressions on their faces came out of the office. "Mr. Shaw, let's go talk," said the senior officer. "Chuck is good with children. He'll look after your boy." They entered the empty ward, and the policeman frowned and shook his head. "First of all, I'm only telling you this because Mrs. Shaw asked me to. She has a right to confidentiality under the law, but she wants you to know everything." "All right." "Mr. Shaw, there is no evidence that Cliff Dunn committed any offense." "What do you mean?" Jason began to raise his voice, but the officer silenced him with a look and a wave of his hand. "Mr. Shaw, I said under the law. Unofficially, he's a dirty guy who deserves a good beating, but we can't press charges. You can file a restraining order to keep him from calling or approaching you, but that's all." I don't understand. I heard her. That's not like my wife. She's in complete despair." "Mr. Shaw, I'm very sorry, but this is going to be difficult for you to hear. According to her, she cheated on you. Your wife voluntarily took MDMA, more commonly known as Molly or ecstasy. She fully admits this and knew that the substance affects mood. Yes, she was intoxicated, particularly her judgment, but she was in a state where she could legally withdraw her consent. She admits that she rejected the advances of another man that evening. She allowed sexual contact to occur at the bar where she met Mr. Dunn in Dunn's car, and then checked into a hotel, paying with her credit card where the affair took place. And Jason's eyes filled with tears. He was so upset and angry. "And there's another and." The officer sighed and shook his head. "There's a video on your wife's phone that clearly shows that she consented to intimacy and to being filmed. Please don't watch it. We need it as evidence just in case, but I told her to delete it after she sent us a copy." "What should I do?" The police officer sighed. "I can't tell you. I don't know what I would do in your place. Your wife is in a difficult state, and MDMA withdrawal can have many potential negative effects on the psyche to which women are more susceptible. You need to be patient. I think she's also coming to terms with feelings of guilt over her infidelity. The psychologist is still talking to her, but she's going to need additional help, probably both of you. She said to take Tommy and go home. Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry, but if you do decide to kick someone's ass, I have to warn you that you could be charged with assault if that bastard decides to press charges. The guy who was insulting you seems like the type who would do that. Be careful." Jason took Tommy to his parents' house and waited alone in the early evening when Kayla arrived with Morgan, who still looked terrible in his tracksuit and a t-shirt that Jason didn't recognize. Kayla looked even worse, with a bruise on her face that appeared to be fresh. Jason didn't say a word, neither did Morgan, who just headed to their bedroom and closed the door. "Thanks, Kayla," Jason said, noticing that the bruise was clearly fresh. "Are you okay?" "Yeah. Just had a fight with that bitch," Kayla replied coldly. "Shelley manipulated us. She convinced Morgan that we were all on Molly that night, but it was just her, and we didn't even know. She pretended to be protecting Morgan from doing something stupid, but she actually tricked us so she could be alone with her. I'd tell you to go check on Shelley, but I just broke my nail and cut my hand. The bitch said Morgan deserved it, that she's always been jealous of her." "Jay, Morgan feels terrible. She keeps saying she betrayed you, that she cheated on you, she was raped. Forget the legal bullshit. She would never have wanted this to happen to her." "Thanks, Kayla," I replied sharply. I wasn't ready to hear excuses. "Jay..." "Thanks, Kayla." Jason entered the bedroom. Morgan, her eyes red from crying, was lying on her side under the covers. "I'm sorry I cheated," she sobbed. "You liked it, didn't you?" he asked calmly. "With Cliff? No, I didn't think." "Please don't lie. Tell me the truth." Morgan began to cry. "Don't do this." "The truth." "Okay, the truth." She sat up, wiped her eyes, and her face looked angry. "The truth is, I cheated on you, and it's all my fault. The truth is, I'm getting old, and I missed some of the parties my friends had when they were 20 because I was already married and committed to you. The truth is, I wanted to have fun, pretend I was 20, and try the drugs people take at big parties these days. The truth is, I felt damn good, better than I had in years. The truth is, I knew I couldn't resist him anymore, so I asked him to take me home. He offered to drive me home anyway, but I wanted to go back. I paid for the room. I made the first move when we walked in. I unlocked my phone so he could take your new number. She wiped her eyes and sighed. "I didn't mind when he called you and shoved the phone in my face so you could talk to him. The truth is, I remember everything now. And yes, I liked it. It was the best sex of my life. So good that I could only think about his and my pleasure. I didn't sleep with him. I made love to him because I felt like I loved him, and there was a strong chemistry between us. The truth is, I'm cheating on you. It's true. Are you happy?" Jason pulled his hand away and was ready to hit a woman for the first time in his life, but she looked like she wanted to be hit. He lowered his hand. Jason sighed and shook his head, disappointed in himself for losing control. "Morgan, the truth is, I don't think I can stay with you after this. I'm going to my parents' house and I'm going to find an apartment, a temporary one at first. The truth is, I can never ever be so drunk or high that I could hurt you the way you hurt me. The fact that you say you were conscious when he, I'm sorry, made love to you..." Morgan nodded. "I know I don't deserve you. I don't deserve anything. I knew you'd leave me as soon as I remembered what I did when I was lying in that taxi. I knew. Just tell me who it was." Jason blinked. "Who was it?" Morgan grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. "Who did you sleep with that you didn't bother to come get me when you knew what was happening to me? Me and that bitch? You didn't care. You didn't tell me to stop. Who is she? It's Kayla, isn't it? I saw the way you looked at her." Jason froze for a second. After everything she had done to him, she was going to blame him. He replied through clenched teeth, "How can you say that? I won't even dignify that with a response." Jason left her screaming and went to his car. He took his phone and was about to call his lawyer, but hesitated. Morgan's behavior made no sense. He stared at the number for a second, then opened his browser and typed in ecstasy. He read about the effects of the drug and how it often led to a loss of self-control, warning women to be careful when having unprotected sex. He also read about the possible side effects after coming off the drug: paranoia and depression, especially in women. The police officer had indeed warned about the drug's effects on mental health. He went to another website, then another. After reading the information on several websites, Jason called his friend, who was also a lawyer at the company. The phone rang several times, and he heard Barry's cheerful voice. "Jay, what can I do for you, buddy?" "Barry, listen. Morgan slept with someone last night." "Damn, man. I'm so sorry. You're not going to break up with her, are you?" "I've thought about it, but no. I need your help. I know this isn't your area, but I'll pay whoever you need to consult. It was Cliff Dunn, and I need to get a restraining order against him today if you can help. But she was given MDMA, ecstasy, by the guy she was at the party with. I'm sure Morgan didn't know what it would do to her, but I'm sure Cliff and this woman did it so he could sleep with her." "I don't know what to say." "Barry, I want you to find out if it's legal to use ecstasy as a date rape drug. Morgan took the stuff willingly, so the police said there's nothing they can do. But what if she didn't know what it would do to her? And the man who gave it to her knew and made sure Morgan was left alone with Cliff? There are witnesses, I presume." "She was with a group of friends. The bitch who gave her the pill told the others that I was there for Morgan because she was drunk, and they left her alone with him at the bar. Morgan was the only one who took the Molly and knew about it. What do you think?" "Listen, Jason, I can't imagine what you're going through right now. I'm no expert in this field, but if you can link the person who gave her the pills to Dunn, it'll be easy to establish a motive. As a friend, I'll call my buddy in the DA's office. I'll be blunt. It's going to be a messy trial, and Morgan will be dragged through the mud. We need to prove that she would never have done something like this under the influence of drugs. You need to be there for her, okay? I'll get a restraining order as soon as possible. Tell Morgan I'm very sorry." Jason hung up, wiped away a tear, and punched the steering wheel until his knuckles turned red. He took a deep breath and went into the house. Morgan was standing in the kitchen drinking a glass of water. When she saw him, she pressed herself against the countertop as if expecting a fight. "What?" "I'm sorry," Jason said quietly. "What?" she asked even more quietly. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened to you," Jason said and hugged his wife, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I didn't want anything to happen last night, but I couldn't control myself," Morgan sobbed, pressing herself against his shoulder. "Do you really forgive me for cheating on you? It won't happen again, I promise." "I forgive you, but they raped you. It's not your fault, and there will never be anyone else for me but you," Jason said, holding her tightly. "But you need help." "Okay, we'll figure it out. Shelley helped them do this to you. You thought she was your friend. How could she do that to you?" "Because Shelley found out," Morgan said quietly, pressing herself against Jason. "I didn't know she knew until Kayla asked her about it this afternoon. It makes sense because Cliff threatened to tell you when he first asked me to the dance. Anyway, it's over, just like I promised. Thank you for forgiving me. I don't deserve you." My stomach churned. "What are you talking about?" "My relationship with Shelley's husband," Morgan sighed. "I told you I cheated on you, and you said you forgave me." Jason let go of his wife. "What? What did you say?" Morgan looked nervous. "Why are you acting like this? You said you forgave me." "You knew perfectly well that I meant you and Cliff. Did you sleep with Chris? How long?" "Jay, please." Morgan's eyes filled with tears. "How long?" Jason shouted, and his wife flinched. 8 months, Morgan said quietly. "I thought you knew. I told the police I had an affair. That's why I made a deal with Dunn." Jason shook his head. Morgan reached out to him. "Please, you promised to forgive me. It's over, like I said. I told him when I left the hospital. Please, I don't want to lose you. I love you." Jason took a few deep breaths and pointed at his wife. "You're still not yourself. Otherwise, you'd understand how you broke my heart. You need help. A therapist or someone else. I'll take care of it. But it's over between us. Call Kyle, because you're not staying here with me." "What are you saying?" Morgan sobbed. "I'm saying I'm divorcing you, and I hope that someday you'll understand why I can't be with you anymore." 10 months later, Jason sat at a conference table with his divorce attorney, Morgan, and her attorney sitting across from him. Despite the fact that after Barry's investigation, the district attorney was ready to press charges against Cliff and Shelley, Morgan refused. She was living with Kayla and her husband, but had recently moved into a small apartment. Jason also lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, having sold his house to split the finances. Tommy lived with him, but Kayla took him to visit his mother. At first, these were short visits, as Jason was concerned about Morgan's mental health, but 4 months ago, they became 3-day visits. Apart from text messages and emails, this was Jason's first contact with his future ex-wife since Kayla had dragged her out of the house screaming. All communication was through lawyers. Custody of the children was shared, with Jason taking the lion's share. The property was divided equally, and child support was determined. A few months later, having calmed down, Jason accepted that Morgan would always be a part of his life as Tommy's mother. So, for his son's sake, he decided not to make Morgan's life more difficult. All the papers were signed, and he was officially no longer married. He shook the lawyer's hand and was ready to leave. "Jason, can we talk?" Morgan asked. She was wearing a beautiful, elegant dress that accentuated her slim figure and legs. He was really going to miss sex with a body like that, almost as much as he was going to miss the woman who had once been his best friend for most of his adult life. "Okay," Jason said, staying behind when the lawyers left. "Can we go somewhere?" "I really need to talk to you," Morgan said. "It's a little late for that, isn't it?" he replied coldly. "Of course, I'm not trying to get you back. I realized long ago that it's no longer possible," she said, and smiled. "Okay, let's go to the cafe across the street," Jason said. "Great. I need a little time, but I'll be there in 10 minutes. Okay?" Jason nodded and left the room. Jason was sitting in the back of the empty cafe when Morgan approached the table. He noticed that she wasn't wearing as much makeup as usual and that her eyes were a little red. "Thank you so much. It means a lot to me," Morgan said as she sat down. They ordered coffee and tea and chatted a bit about Tommy, like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. The conversation was friendly, but not as close as between people who had lived together for over a decade. At one point, Morgan fell silent and said, "Jason, I really need to apologize. I'm sure you understood when we last spoke that I wasn't myself and made things difficult for you." "Okay," Jason replied emotionlessly. "First of all, please believe me, I didn't mean to hurt you. I wouldn't have given Dan a second of my time if I didn't want to spare you the pain of finding out what I did," Morgan said. "What exactly did you do and why?" Jason asked, crossing his arms. "How much do you want to know?" Morgan replied. "Everything. The divorce is final. It doesn't matter anymore," Jason said. "But it matters because I still love you and care about you. I want to remain a part of your life. I want us to continue raising our children together, even if we are no longer married," Morgan said. "You want us to get back together?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes. But I told you I know it's impossible. Okay, I'll tell you everything. You deserve to know everything. Just know how sorry and ashamed I am." "When did this start?" Morgan shrugged. "That weekend, I went with some other couples to Shelley and Chris's cabin, and you were busy at work and couldn't go. That night, we were all pretty drunk. Eventually, when everyone went to bed, Chris and I were sitting by the fireplace. It was getting cold, so he went to get a blanket. It just happened. He was friendly, but he was actually flirting, and I liked the attention. I mean, I don't get looked at or whistled at like I used to. Nothing happened that night, But after that, Chris started courting me. We had dinner together and texted each other. I was enjoying the attention again and wasn't thinking about cheating. One day he picked me up for lunch and took me out of town to a secluded park for a picnic. He kissed me again and I'm sorry, but I gave in to my hormones. I was so ashamed and scared that you would notice. I behaved so badly that I developed an ulcer. I tried to be extra nice to make up for it. I was sure I would never let myself do that again. But the next week, Chris invited me to dinner, and I didn't refuse. Even when he took me to a motel instead of a restaurant. I know it doesn't matter, but in those few months, we only had sex 5 times. Once in his car, the rest in motels, and always with a condom. When I told you, I think I said I broke up with him from the hospital, but that's not exactly true. I stopped sleeping with Chris about 7 weeks before Dunn showed me the photos of us leaving the motel room. However, I still allowed him to invite me to lunch a couple of times a week. That's what I stopped doing. I knew we had no chance if he was still around. Of course, it didn't matter. Jason sighed. You still haven't told me why. I thought we had the perfect marriage, which is why it hurts so much. I felt completely blinded and damn stupid. To realize that my perfect wife had been cheating on me with another man for a long time. I already told you it was stupid vanity. He flattered me like you and other men had before, and I liked it. I also thought our marriage was good, and I was completely satisfied with our sex life. I didn't let him have sex with me. I don't know why I did it, except that I was caught up in a silly fantasy and acting like a stupid teenage girl. Even though Chris and Shelley broke up too, I'm not interested in any kind of relationship with him, ever. Jason paused, then said, Okay, now tell me about Dan, the truth. Morgan looked at her tea and shrugged. He approached me at the bar before I was very drunk and had taken a pill. I threatened to call security when he showed me a photo of Chris and me leaving a motel room holding hands. We had always been careful and never told anyone, but that time, he threatened to tell you and said I had to be nice to him. I told him to get lost, but I was really scared he would tell you. He came up to me again when I was really drunk and high. At first he said he just wanted to dance sexy, but when we started, I felt warm and lost control. I remember bits and pieces, not everything I did. I'm sure you understand that without drugs and alcohol, I would never have done that. Jason snorted. Even though he promised not to tell you that you slept with him? Yes, Morgan replied sharply, because I would have found out. I knew when he said he would tell you anyway. I was even going to leave right then and there to go home and sort things out, but Shelley convinced me to stay. So if Dunn hadn't made a scene, how long would your emotional affair with Chris have lasted? Jason crossed his arms. I don't know. After we stopped sleeping together, I stopped feeling guilty about seeing him. It just became attention again. Morgan said, Again, I'm so sorry. Even though we're not married, I want to make it up to you, to earn your respect again. No. Nothing like that, Morgan said, crying. I couldn't sleep with you knowing it was just sex. I just mean, I don't know. Let Tommy know ahead of time if you have a date or something. I'm sure you're already seeing someone else. I'll make you dinner. Something. Jay, it's killing me that you hate me right now, and I want to fix everything. I don't hate you. I hate myself for still loving you, Jason said. But not enough to be stupid enough to give you a second chance. I'm sorry Chris seduced you so easily, and then Dunn. I'll never trust you again. I understand, Morgan said, tears streaming down her cheeks. But can we at least get along? Try to be friends? Who is he? Jason asked. Morgan blinked. What? I know you. You wouldn't mention my dates so casually if you weren't seeing someone yourself. Who is he? I met him at a party Kylea threw. He works with her. Nothing serious. I was just lonely, Morgan said, looking down. I mean, we broke up, so I didn't think it mattered. How long have you been sleeping with him? If you don't tell me, I'll make Kayla tell me, Jason said, leaning forward. I. How long after you left did it happen? Tell me, Jason said. A couple of weeks, maybe 3. It was at a time when he was still hesitating to give her another chance. Her refusal to go to counseling at that point had sealed the deal, but she had clearly just moved on. Jason shook his head. You're hung up on losing me, aren't you? Not that it's any of your business, but aside from the Palm sisters, I'm still too upset about our breakup to even think about a new relationship. He stood up. I'm sorry, but after 13 years of knowing you, I'm finally starting to see you for who you really are. Was Chris the first guy you cheated on me with? Forget it. I don't want to know the answer, and I definitely don't want to have any relationship with you other than co-parenting Tommy. And thank you for not making me regret divorcing a cheater like you. Goodbye. Jason didn't listen to the excuses she tried to come up with and left. He felt stupid for thinking they could ever be friends again. At the meeting with the lawyers, she looked so beautiful that a small part of him still considered going to counseling to try to repair the relationship. Instead, he left, mostly angry at himself for being such a fool and not realizing that his beautiful wife cared more about having someone make her look beautiful than she did about their relationship. He decided to go back to simple text messages with Morgan and let Kayla be the go-between for Tommy's trips between apartments. 3 days later, when it was time for Morgan to pick up Tommy for a few days, he texted her but didn't get a response. After 4 hours, he got a little worried and texted Kayla to see if she knew what had happened to his ex-wife. Kayla didn't respond to the message, but she called 20 minutes later. Hello. Hi, Jason, Kayla said in an agitated voice. You need to come to Westview Memorial Hospital. Morgan's been admitted. What happened? She's been beaten up pretty badly. Who? Jason feared it was a robbery or attempted rape. It was Janelle, Wes's wife. She must have found out everything and tracked Morgan down at work. Wait, is that the guy she's been dating for the last 10 months? He's married? Jason shook his head in disbelief. No, it's Mark, but it's more of a casual fling. They're mostly friends. I don't think they had a sexual relationship, Kayla said in a strange tone. What did Janelle find out? Jason asked sharply, deciding not to mention that he knew Kayla was lying to cover for her friend. It happened once. I mean, she still loves you very much and was in emotional shock after the divorce. One thing led to another, and one night... Wait, Wesley Sharp? Her lawyer who's 50 years old? Jason almost dropped the phone. Jason, she's in bad shape. Please come, Kayla said. And bring Tommy. Will she survive? Jason asked. What? Yes, but she has a broken bone in... Kayla began. Kayla, you know what Tommy had to see when I took him to the hospital last time to see his mother, and how it affected him. Tell my ex-wife that Tommy will have to wait until she gets out to see him, and considering she didn't wait until the divorce was final to start acting like a bitch, tell her I'm reconsidering our custody arrangement. She already told me she slept with that Mark guy before I made my final decision to divorce her. I'm starting to wonder if her personal judgment is going to affect our son. You're a heartless bastard. I'm not telling her that. She's barely conscious, Kayla replied sharply. How dare you threaten to take her son away from her? If you were a real man, she might not have had to look for another man. Go to hell, Kayla, and tell Morgan that everything has changed. Jason shook his head and hung up. He immediately called his divorce lawyer, who listened to him and began preparing a petition for full custody of Tommy. Jason was now prepared to play dirty and use any means necessary to keep Tommy away from his mother. The affair with his client was a huge mistake, although not a direct violation of the law. Morgan could be accused of using a client for sexual purposes. This leverage could be used to convince Wesley Sharp to force Morgan to agree to a new deal. In addition, he could mention that Morgan had used drugs, she had admitted herself that she had voluntarily taken ecstasy, and demand that she take a drug test. Jason knew that Kayla and her husband were heavy marijuana smokers, and he was sure that Morgan also smoked from time to time. Jason also called Barry to see if he could find anything else that might help him get full custody. Morgan was still in the hospital when her lawyer received the petition 3 weeks later. Jason was not surprised that she did not contest it. Her new lawyer, since Wesley Sharp had refused to continue representing her, said that the only thing that concerned Morgan was that she could still visit Tommy, to which Jason agreed on the condition that the visits be supervised by a social worker and that the agreement be reviewed in the future. Despite what Morgan said, it was clear that her relationship with Mark really meant a lot to her. Not enough to stop her from cheating on him with her former lawyer, but enough to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the video of her sleeping with Sharp in his office. Jason seriously doubted that Sharp's wife had suspected anything only this time, and hired a detective. Jason's friend, lawyer Barry, pulled some strings with his friend, the prosecutor, and Mrs. Sharp pleaded guilty to assault, handed over the video, and received a suspended sentence. Jason knew that after what he had done, Morgan would probably hate him now, but she had chosen her lover over her son. Surprisingly, he felt no guilt and was ready to move on with his life. Jason saw Morgan from a distance, but when she entered the room, he didn't recognize her and hadn't spoken to her in over 3 years. Every time Tommy visited his mother, a woman from social services would take him away and bring him back. The visits began to take place without supervision, but Tommy was still not allowed to stay with his mother for more than 8 hours, and certainly not overnight. "Hi, you look good," Jason said, even though it wasn't true. Morgan still had traces of her former beauty, but she looked 10 years older, not 3. "Thanks, but you're just being polite. I look worn out and tired because I haven't taken care of myself in years," Morgan said with a weak smile. "You, on the other hand, haven't aged a day since we last saw each other." Morgan ordered only juice from the waiter, while Jason was already on his 3rd pint of beer. To say he hadn't been looking forward to this meeting would be an understatement, especially considering what awaited him at home afterward. "So, it's your party. What do you want, Morgan?" Jason asked flatly. She looked nervous and shrugged. "I'm sure you know one of the reasons. I want to change the custody agreement. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but I want my boy to be able to stay with me more than half the time. I want to be his mom again, not just the person he visits." "I thought so," Jason said, trying not to show his emotions. Seeing Morgan still brought up a lot of feelings from the past. Time hadn't healed that wound yet. "You said one of the reasons." Morgan sighed and shrugged. "I think the other, equally important reason is that I really want to apologize to you and thank you." "Thank me?" Jason couldn't help but laugh. "For taking Tommy away from me, for making me undergo a psychiatric evaluation and attend counseling, for making me admit that I had hit rock bottom and needed help. Once I stopped being angry and blaming you, even though you did nothing to deserve it, I sought help. I really needed help." She cried and grabbed a napkin to wipe her eyes. "The things I said to you when I was angry, I didn't mean them. I only said them to hurt you. I hope you know that a lot of it was a lie, especially the part about you being a bad lover. You were the most important person in my life, and I ruined everything by sleeping with 4 men while we were married: Chris, Cliff Dunn, Wesley, and Mark. What I did to you by having an affair with Chris is unforgivable and completely justifies your decision to divorce me. Everything else just made it worse. I want to say how sorry I am for everything, for all the pain I caused you and especially Thomas. I really hope that one day you can both forgive me." "Thank you. I want to forgive you, but you and I—" Jason began, looking down at his beer. "Jason, I don't want to make excuses, but you need to know that my decision to take that stupid drug that night had long-term consequences for me," Morgan said. "It really affected my judgment and my perception of what was going on around me. For many years, I sincerely believed that you had been cheating on me throughout our marriage and had conspired with your mistress to take my son away from me. I felt like I had to try very hard to please the men around me, Otherwise, they would betray me too, even though I didn't trust them. It took a lot of counseling and medication for me to fully recover from that. Now I have accepted most of the truth, especially that you were a loving and faithful husband and a devoted father who protected his son. You were right not to let me near Tommy, and by forcing me to seek help, you saved my life. Everything that happened with Chris was entirely my fault, but what I did after that terrible night, I wasn't myself for a long time. I know, Morgan, Jason said, not wanting to see her so upset. They had too much in common not to care about her when she was genuinely remorseful. No, I don't deserve to be called that, Morgan said between sobs. Jason, please forgive me for hurting you when I wasn't myself, and for how I behaved when I wasn't myself. I truly believe that I am back to my old self, and I want a chance to prove to you, Tommy, and everyone who wants to see that I am ready to be his mom again. I will agree to any terms you and Amanda agree on. Amanda? The name caught him off guard. She's been more of a mother to him than I have for the past 2 years, Morgan said, and Jason understood how much that hurt her. She should have as much say in this as you do. I'd like to get to know her too. I don't expect us to be friends or for her to love me, but I want to know the person who is raising my son. Jason sighed. Morgan, this is too much. Like I said, I'll try to forgive you. The fact that I still love you makes it difficult. And your long affair with Chris hurt me much more than what happened after. As for custody, I'll discuss it with my wife, but I'm sure Amanda will support whatever decision I make. If it means anything, you're more like the Morgan I knew. But that's the one who broke my heart by sleeping with another man behind my back for 6 months. However, she was also a wonderful mother, and I want that woman back in Tommy's life. Morgan couldn't speak. She was crying so hard. When she was finally able to speak, all she said was, "Thank you," and then she got up and left. Watching her leave, Jason decided he would forgive her and try to rebuild some kind of relationship, hoping Amanda would understand why. Hopefully, the fact that Jason had no regrets about ending his first marriage would be enough for Amanda not to hold it against him too much.